ARN in May or June. What month is it? May and June, I guess.
Yes.
June. Yeah. Uh, so, um, what are some things I thought about? Here's something funny that could start conversation starter of some sort. But the friend, somebody sent me a GIF of a person, kind of like at a zoo, like an old guy. He teaches like monkeys to do things,
Okay.
and so the little GIF is like he takes a saw and angle this down a bit. He takes a saw and has a piece of wood, and he saws just a line in the piece of wood, and then he gives the saw and wood to the orangutan, and the orangutan just has the wood and then like flops the saw on top and starts like
Yeah.
it's like the orangutan learned something,
Yeah.
but like parts of it, and then he takes a nail and he hammers the nail just the in so it sticks up, and he
Wow.
gives it to the orangutan, and the orangutan throws the nail down on the wood, and then
Yeah.
takes the hammer and starts bashing it like this.
Yeah.
So and then you see the guy in the background of both ones. He's just staring at the monkey, just like straight face, like observing it,
Yeah.
and he was like, this is James watching us play Smash." Good. And I ended up chatting with a couple people throughout the week and using that GIF as kind of the example of like when I forget what the first person said, but the conversation was something about how there's all these like things you have to worry about in the future. Like, what are you gonna, thinking about things like we don't know where we're gonna be in 10 years, so we have to pay attention or like plan for, what am I gonna do when I retire? Am I gonna have enough money and like all this other stuff? And it was some lady who was talking about that, and to me that like her being concerned about this thing in the future, like I need to make sure I have enough money to like for whatever it is, and just her plans of the things she's worrying about, like the what if scenarios, and yet at the same time she's thinking I have no idea what I'm going to be doing in 10 years. So she's like, there are infinite what if scenarios that you could plan for in 10 years from now, and she's planning for like very specific ones. Like she has worry about these, she can go into detail about the things she's worried about, and like she doesn't even know where she's going to be in 10 years, and so she's like confused on both. And I brought this up to her and I was like, the just kind of her own little conundrum, and she's like, yeah, I guess this is like just life is going, and I'm running into the walls and stuff. And then I explained the almost like she's on the side of a river and the river's flowing, and then you can just float down in the middle of it, like I'm just drifting down the middle. And then she's like, but what if, what, you can't let go. You can't let go. So like I started using these examples to her. But when I didn't bring up was when she was talking about it, or like whatever she was starting to talk about, she started to say, as soon as she mentioned, I have genuine concern for what I'm going to do when something happens. And the thing she said that happens is not even close to happening in her life. And things have to like cascade in such a worst case scenario after worst case scenario thing to get there. And she mentioned this chain, and I'm like, huh? And then she's like, and I'm concerned about it. I have genuine concern for it. I'm like, what? And to me, that was like, and I was just staring at her with a straight face, and then that gift came to mind of like I'm watching, like to me she looked like a monkey, threw a nail at a thing, started hitting it with a hammer, and like the he sent it to me initially, that little gift, that this is what it looks like when I watch people play Smash, is just watching them fumble along with these things, like they're getting parts of it but they're not getting the whole thing. And then talking to her, and then talking to another lady a bit later who had almost the same thing going on. In both cases, that gift came to mind of like, this is me just watching people in life where it's like, I have genuine concern for this what if of a what if of a what if of a what if. And it's like dad bringing up, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna survive next year. I might end up on the street and like all this other stuff, dead in a ditch. And I'm like, because of this one thing that you've been worried about like 20 times in your life and has never happened. So yeah, just but yeah, I guess reason I thought that might be a funny launching off point to like so many different directions is like the what like to the planet or to a higher level of like of consciousness, like a actually smart person, like a Goenka or something, probably sees the rest of everybody else just going through life and be like, oh, I'm worried about this, oh, I'm agitated, I have pain here, and like, oh, what if, and my trauma and my back and my uh you know friends and family and work situation, like all this other like things. And then he's just like, yes, yes, awareness and equanimity are difficult, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, us all of us lower life forms who are still learning these basics about life, we're orangutans, so we very much are. Yeah. But then instead of using tools, it's like the tools of consciousness. Instead, a monkey is figuring out the tools. And like if you showed them the nail, like that you want the nail standing up, and you showed them like, hey, how to stand up a nail, and you push it into the wood, and a monkey could probably push it into the wood because they're so strong. But like just get them to show it standing up, they probably figured just that part out. And then you tell them like show them how to use a hammer. It's like you hit it, you swing it like this, and the hammer head goes down.
Hmm.
They probably figured that out, and then you combine the two, they'd probably figure it out. But if you just show them like the hammer and nail, they're probably like, yeah, okay, you hit the nail with this part. So like they get something, they get one piece of all of the things going on, and then once you add all those together, it would all make sense. And like everybody, we're all like getting pieces, and some of us are just getting different pieces and more pieces than others. And then we look at others and are like confused of what pieces they're getting and not others. And it's like, you go to one person and they're concerned about one thing, and another person they're concerned about the other. When that person, if you actually like add it up all together, they should be more concerned about the thing that person's concerned about, but they attach themselves to that instead of this. And yeah, it's fascinating adventure.
Yeah. Makes me think about not so much like consciousness, but just like learning anything or whatever, and how um, some people like it's hard to show all the steps. Like if you're coaching someone, how do you really get them to see like all the different aspects of the thing that if you're the teacher or whatever, showing them how maybe you're already doing so naturally, and you don't, you're just, even if you're showing them every little thing, for them to actually apply it and have it integrated in a way that's like, when should you use which thing when, you could hold the hammer like this and do this, and it might work for this, but it's not going to work for this. And
It's like if you this week I ended up doing so many other odds and ends, but like one of them is I had to fix the irrigation at Dad's house. So he like him and Ian drilled a couple holes, like big holes in the ground to build the fence posts, and they hit a couple water lines. So I like cut and measured all these pieces, like dug it up, and was going to redo the piping. And then I had it all like measured, and I work with this kind of piping all the time, and I know how you would do things, especially when things can't move. So like you're trying to make pipes like this, but they can't move at all, and they can't move this way. So you have to somehow get like a coupling in there. So you like cut it, and then you figure out what has to give, and slide a coupling on one way a little, and slide it on the other. And there's a technique to it. And
yeah,
but then Dad sat down with me after I had everything ready to go, and he glued the wrong piece onto the wrong fitting, and he glued it so far in that we like it lost any give, so it couldn't work. And then he immediately knocked over the glue and got it all over the tools. And the whole time he's panicking. He's like, "Oh, Joe, no, no." And then like the then a couple days later, I went to the bakery, and Kit and John were there, and they were building a cart, like a rack. And on the very bottom of the rack, Kit and John, when I showed up, they most of it was done, and they were trying to put the wheels on, and they're jamming this like metal piece of the wheel that goes around a corner, like a corner on the bottom, into the corner of the rack itself. And I
yeah,
was like, given how much force they're trying to put to this and like apply to this to make it work, guaranteed they're throwing everything else out of whack, and it's not going to work. So something's wrong here. And like, if this is wrong, then what else is wrong? So I looked at, I was like, do you have the box of like a finished things so you can see what it looks like or the instructions or anything? They're like, nope. And I found like one sheet of paper that it showed like the bottom corner of the wheels, and sure enough, they had the wheel on the wrong corner. And then after we put the wheels on, we stood it up and we tried fixing other things. And then I noticed that they like a bolt and a screw that are going in, you're supposed to put it into like the holes like bigger and then it's little. And you're supposed to put it in and then like slide it down into a little section so it stays there. They didn't do that. So you could actually slide every part of the rack, just the bolts right out of the hole. So the whole thing could just come apart at any moment. So I just redid everything they did. And it's just like this little thing. So, it's the tool example. Like you could show an orangutan how to do the wheel, how to put a screw on, how to hammer something. Like you show them all these little pieces, and you don't even know what they're picking up from it. It's like, show a monkey how to hammer a nail. You show anybody when you're teaching them like this one basic skill, like every single little skill of it, there's no telling what they're actually picking up from any skill, or if they have, if they're even not just applying it to the thing that you're specifically showing them for, but showing them it and being like, extrapolate from this all the times that you would want to use this skill.
Yeah, like
Like how many are they thinking about?
what what does this mean for all the different things you could possibly do ever, not just this one thing that's going on right now.
Yeah. And then when you extrapolate, not just like, that, this, using it for this one thing that we're learning about, or all the times you will ever need it. But then when you look at something like a rack, there's only so many skills you need to build a shelf. But when you're talking about all of life, so now it's like a skill, like a life skill, a skill of like how to use the consciousness, because we're not using a hammer and nails, we're using weird geometry of the mind and like pattern association and all this other stuff that we don't really have wording for, and then extrapolating that into any circumstance in life and any kind of development of awareness and anything that we start to like that passes through our life experience. That is like, that's complex. There's a lot going on there. So it's no wonder we're all so different yet so similar too at the same time. Like everyone has the same kind of like, you know wake up in the morning and we have our a routine we might get into or whatever. Like there's things. It's like, yeah, humans, they wake up and then there's like things that they will do kind of regularly after doing it 365 days times a year for however long they're alive. There are certain things that each person will do. Those things will vary greatly. Some of them will match up. A lot of them will be the same. Like, so we have similarities and yet so vastly different too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder just even doing that same experiment with different orangutans, right? Like, how many monkeys did he do that with before? As he was observing, right?
Yeah. Well, have you? There's like pretty famous tests or like just examples of the way they would study the behaviors of animals, where they'll have like a platform with food on it and a platform with a monkey on it, and then stuff on the bottom, and then they have the monkey reach across, and it just casually reaches across and grabs the food. It's just like what they do. It's like, hey, there's food over here, and they reach over and grab it. And then they'll do that with like monkeys from a zoo and stuff. And then no matter what's on the bottom, it could be snakes, it could be rocks, it could be like the ornaments, it could be any animal, like other animal, whatever it is, and the monkey doesn't care. And as soon as they take a monkey in from the wild that has seen snakes, it'll be cautious and it'll like climb cautiously around and then grab the food and then climb cautiously back. And if the monkeys from the zoo see that, then the monkeys from the zoo climb cautiously around if the snakes are down there, even though they didn't before. They would just like grab the food. And now it's like, they're being cautious. Should I be cautious? Is this something I should do? Or even the dogs at Ian's house or at Dad's house, like Ian's little dogs there. One of them would bark, and like there's so much intensity and urgency in like a bark and a prance across the yard that the other two dogs are probably like, that was intense. That's there's a lot of assertion there. Should I be barking too?
Yeah.
Then they're off, and it's like, why? Yeah.
This is something I thought of the other day was that, like, there's stories of Buddha where, someone goes to him and has some issue or whatever, right? And he maybe gives them a story or he tells them to do some specific task or whatever it is. And it's like the perfect thing that makes them learn whatever they need to learn, right? And so I was just thinking, someone who gives advice, unless they're giving the advice that actually leads to a result for that person, then they don't actually know well enough what that person needs if they can't actually give them the proper advice that actually makes them have that change, right? So like if they need a metaphor or a task or whatever for them to then go follow up, do something, and have the realization, well, then they were properly taught, right? But if they're given some information and they don't apply it because it doesn't, it's not the right thing that leads to a result or whatever, then it's just words. It's
Yeah. And then it's a, if you're the Buddha, obviously you know what it is, uh,
yeah,
all the time. But then in it, like to, you know, Dulce coming back from Vipassana and, figuring all these things out, the thing that made him go was us talking and you going and him realizing that it wasn't just this one person that could be like this, but other people can learn how to be like this and be happier, and you could actually like learn to be happier and like he could see it in another person, and that's what clued him in. And it's like, was there something that somebody could have said to help him, or was it like something that he just it wasn't even something that was said to him? Probably it was probably us talking, and during our conversation of him being around and nodding, but like as if he's following along, like, in his own way, it was like, wait.
yeah,
And it wasn't
yeah,
even addressing him. It was like the story, the metaphor was two other people talking and him kind of going through it himself after hearing so many things about it, and or like, just observing it, being like, and that's the thing that clues him in. Or even
yeah,
dad today was talking about how one of his friends came over and was super drunk and totally a nuisance, like just total nuisance. And dad's like, I hope I'm not like that. I'm like, you are. He's like, yeah, you've said that before. Oh, I hate that. It's like, is that what he needed? He like finally, after so long and so many times people telling him this, like he finally is starting to realize how much of a nuisance drunk people are, and he doesn't want to do that. And like, really, did this? But yeah, maybe there's
yeah,
something the Buddha would have said to him a lot earlier, like
yeah,
said, "You're a nuisance" in a very specific way, or something.
yeah. Go to a bar and do this or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like he would just tell dad a story about what dad would do regularly in a bar. It's like, say you did this or you were at this place and then somebody was like this and somebody did this and whatever, and at the end of the story the Buddha would be like, have you ever been one of these two people in this story? I'm
Yeah,
sure you've been both. And dad would be like, oh, I really don't want to be that nuisance person, and I don't want to be the bothered by the nuisance people, be this person who's bothered by them. I don't want to be in that situation. Like maybe something like that would work, who knows.
yeah. Another thing I thought of as a conversation piece was I forget how you worded it, but that life is a retro-reflective movement or something like that. I was just thinking of like what exactly does that mean? And is that right? Retro-reflective or
Yeah, retro reflective. So it kind of uh, for example, like the signs on the side of the road that reflect back at car lights.
yeah,
They're retro-reflective because the way that they're shaped, it's hard to do geometry and show it in a mirror. But like the you can just look up like the geometry of it, the shape of the glass in there
yeah,
makes it so that the light bounces off one surface, bounces off another surface, comes right back at the vehicle. So no matter what angle you're looking, like if it's a flat surface, no matter what angle you're looking at it, so no matter what angle the sign is to you, you're
yeah,
always getting the light directly back to you. So that's why no matter what angle you come at a sign from, if you're in a car, your headlights will bounce off the light and it'll always come back to you, no matter how you're looking at it. So it's like regardless of perspective, you see yourself. Like the mirror is facing you. And life is very retro reflective. Like no matter what is happening, it's you're always seeing yourself in it. Like you can't escape the yourself in the thing. And then it's the movement part is it's not a static thing. It's not a stationary thing. So it's not like light comes back and it's an instant, but it's a emotion. So there's like the single moment is emotion. So it doesn't matter what the moment is. It's not the static state of being that you are is not a this is how I am. You can never say this is how I am. It's this is how I am moving. This is the direction I am going. So it's like running to dark, running to light, as the Buddha would say, or whatever that is. Like becoming. Are you becoming more compassionate? It's not are you compassionate or are you
Change,
greedy? It's how are you becoming more of? What is the direction you're headed?
change.
Yeah, change. I saw the I when I was digging out those Lantern Valley booklets, I saw the original Opening Clarity with Menton. I was like, I got to read this. I haven't yet, but yeah. So forget what the last line is, but every time I hear like change, I always think of that last line.
Yeah.
Just
Live with it well.
yeah, no matter where you are or what you may be, change the the something of change is eternally your constant. Live with it
Yeah.
well, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, retroreflective. It comes back at you all the time. You're a part of it. Like you are it, and it's just showing you what you are, and what you are is never a thing. You can. It's actually impossible to state I am this because this implies a staticness. Like I am. Um, Confused. It's like, no, you are moving towards more and more confusion, or you're moving away from confusion. There's no actual you are the thingy. It's like which direction are you moving? So anytime we say we are anything, that's just the direction we're going, or it's the thing we're moving away from if we're aware that we are it and we're moving away from it. So it's like, oh, I'm anxious, but you're aware and developing some equanimity with the feeling of being anxious, then technically you're moving away from anxiety. That's what one is. Yeah.
I have a book called The Power of Decision, and there was a sentence I read the other day which was something like aware of um like but as soon as I'm aware of a problem, you're actually aware of the solution for that problem. And it's just like a reframing of, oh, I witnessed some whatever it is problem, but because of that awareness, well, I'm moving towards a solution
Yeah.
for that instead of, I mean, I could just mull over the problem, but that's without awareness, where that's just continuing the pattern. This is being, oh, I notice the pattern. What does that mean? Well, it means I'm finding a solution. That's like the actual
Yeah.
fact,
Like yeah, the act is already in motion, and that is the act that is in motion. Yeah. The similar to something that I talked about to one of those ladies who was mentioning like concern in the orangutan examples is the can't remember how it came up, but I started to give examples of like kind of the other end of it. Like another way of seeing it is if say I want to stop being moody and I want to be enthusiastic when I want almost like the concern type of thing, like the wavelengths. Oh yeah, it was about yawning. That's another topic. Uh, but how like birds and a murmuration, all that stuff. Like we've talked about how being in the zone, and when you're in the zone, then everything kind of lines up. And if you're in the zone with others, things line up. So everybody's kind of in a zone together, and wavelengths work that way. So it's like if you go into a room and somebody's like really agitated, when they enter the room, the whole room becomes a little more agitated. And for those who are really susceptible and not very aware or equanimous, they will become more agitated because of the room being itself having that weight, that state of being, the resonance of like the pattern of being agitated. But those who are more aware and more balanced, they won't be affected as much, but they will still be aware of the fact that agitation just entered the room, almost like as a movement. This room is moving into agitation just by a person being agitated, moving into a room. And in the same way, if you decide to be enthusiastic when you go into a room, it's like, I want to be enthusiastic when I go into this room, at least for like 5 seconds, so that I'm not bringing the mood down of the room, or like, or bring it up and like, I want to have a good day, and, or cheers, maybe you're going to your grandma's house and she's grouch and you're like, I need to be happy for my grandma so that she's not a grouch when I'm there, or something like that. I just talked to mom about that the other day. And like the enthusiasm that is expressed by when you go into the room for the first 5 to 10, 20 seconds or whatever it is, that is actually a result of the motion that you started when you made the decision to go to be enthusiastic. Like that, the enthusiasm was all in the decision. That's where all of the power was. In that like single moment, you had so much decisiveness and so much presence that all of your power was in act to be how you wanted to be. And then the rest just kind of trickles off from there. Like you kicked off the movement. Like maybe it was like, oh, I'm annoyed, I don't want to go to work today. And then it's like, but I want to have a good day at work, and I don't want to like, you know, just have a bad day at work. Like you made the decision to go like, I'm gonna go enthusiastic. And then whatever that expresses that, like you might not never put it into words like I'm gonna be enthusiastic for 10 seconds when I enter a room, but it's like I'm just gonna bring up energy. Let's do it. And like for you made the decision already. You already kicked it into gear. It's like a flick up, like new. And then the first 10 seconds that you're in the room, you're in high gear of moving in that direction. And then usually when you enter a room, you bring up like the enthusiasm has entered the room. And if enthusiasm enters the room, anybody who's not aware and not very equanimous feels that enthusiasm, and they carry it. Like it's so easy for, it's almost like when we were at Shambhala, you go up to some guy who's got his head down and rocking away, and a guy next to him, and you slap him on the back and go woo, and then they're like woo, and then they just carry it with them. And if you do go into a room and people are wearing equanimous, then they're already balanced, they're already enthusiastic and like full of power and everything. So they'll feel the enthusiasm and be like, sweet. Like, yeah, we're carrying it. Let's do this. Like it's a decision is way before. And then all you did was kick it into gear, and that motion carries. And then for as long as you want to carry it, that's the motion that you will continue to carry. Yeah.
I
Okay.
was thinking of the sort of like the energy that is often really embodied after a Vipassana course, is this like relaxed excitement for life.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I mean, there's like, you could just, I mean, awareness and equanimity does mean that, but it's almost like another word would be good to have, is like to be like equanimous and like cheery, or
Yeah.
equanimous and excited, or whatever. That it's kind of, because
It's
I
one of
mean,
those things. It's one of those things like so similar to I don't want to be at peaceful or like balanced because I don't want to be pacifist and just go sit in
yeah,
a cave for a long time. And like it's the exact opposite that happens. Like if you're meditating and you have your presence of mind or whatever, you have all of your power, and then all of your actions and decisions are like with all of your intent and all of your focus, and like you're just so much more able and capable and active. So yeah, it's that weird thing where if you say awareness and equanimity, then people perceive like sitting around on your butt in a cave or being passive or whatever, when it's the exact opposite. So it's like it's more the perception of what
what
being
that would
alive
mean.
is. Yeah, being
Yeah,
alive and full of your power, being aware and equanimous, like they're all synonyms, and people don't really know that they're all synonyms. But even if you use a different word for awareness and equanimity, like uh, you know, being present or something, people still might be, I don't want to just be present and just be where I am. I want to like do things. Like so it's almost
yeah,
the perception of what the result is, the perception of what how it's expressed in the world is the thing that needs a wording rather
yeah.
than a word that
What's
it goes to.
like if you say, "Oh, fully enlightened" or whatever? It's like, wow, what does that mean? Like that doesn't sound exciting. Like, or
Yeah.
it's too grand that it's not even. perceivable, it's like, well, I don't even know what that means. So like,
Yeah, so far to one extreme or another of like it's unattainable or it's boring, being a
yeah,
full moon boring, or but I like the things that I'm attached to, and then but the person is constantly getting agitated by things because they're attached to them. And then if you bring up, if you develop a bit of awareness and equanimity, you can still have those things. You just won't have the problems with them. It's like, yeah, but I want to be attached to them. It's like, but you just said you don't. And like, yeah, so like
but
all
yeah,
those things.
it's also like that the words talking about like attachment or whatever, like are are just not the experience. You know, the description's not the described, and
Yeah,
they just it can just kind of, I don't know. People just don't get things because they haven't experienced something else, so they're viewing it from where they are, and so it doesn't. Just yeah,
yeah.
it's weird.
It's what they're it really that gif of the guy standing there just observing equanimously the orangutans bashing a hammer with a nail, just that, yeah, you can show the orangutan how to do what they're trying to do. You can show the orangutan what they might want to do, what they've seen other people do. You can show the orangutan all sorts of different ways of using the hammer and like pulling out nails or anything else, and then just let the orangutan do what it does, because it's just going to do what it does, and that's the way that any that's all anybody can do for anybody else. Oh,
Yeah, I think it's really about. I watched a Bashar talk yesterday, or Daryl Anka talk, and he was saying the guy asked him at the end, like, "What's the purpose of life?" And he was like, "To be authentic and to be a living example of whatever that is. Your unique expression or whatever." And I think it is being that living example. Then it's like, well, there's no specific thing that can really do anything for anyone else. It's just everything that you are as a living example could potentially affect and like does influence and have effect, but we can't really know what it is, and we can't know how, what words we say are going to actually do something, or what actions we do, or anything is going to change anyone else. It's just because ultimately everyone's just doing their own.
orang- they're all just orangutans.
Yeah,
Yeah, just children, like little kids playing with blocks, and then just let them do their thing. Just let them do their thing. Show them different ways they could do it. If they're interested in more things, you can show them that, but just let them do their thing.
and everyone's having their own retro-reflective movement experience or expression. So it's just you know a one person job for that. For that
Yeah,
one person or being, whatever.
there was one of the something that one thing that came to mind that's kind of related, kind of not, is it came to mind earlier. I can't remember why, but there's a thing called the I Am Discourse by Saint Germain. That was some like channel thing in the 30s. But it's like a cool thing. I think there's a link on YouTube that I'm gonna watch at some point. But it sounds really cool. But there was this one section where they this person it's like, wherever your consciousness is, that's where you are. There you are. It almost sound Alan Watts style, like wherever your consciousness is, that's where you are. There you are. And the just wherever you're, if you're concerned, if you're enthusiasm, or if you're anything, like wherever you're deciding and being or anything, that's where all of your power is, and that's you. That's like where your consciousness is. And then on the orangutan example, is like all these orangutans, or like everybody is just kind of, they are where they are. They are where their consciousness is. That could be like so not where any of us think the others are. Like if we look at an orangutan that's bashing a hammer, like a funny nail or whatever, when we were showing them the hammer and the nail on how they would want to, how they could do it, and then they're copying the person trying to, how do I do this too? And whatever. It's like, yeah, that looks like a good idea. And then they try doing it. And like, where is that monkey's consciousness? Like, there's no way we could know. And then every monkey's consciousness is going to be totally different. And then when you go into like humans and the vast number of humans, like we're all so different. So everybody's consciousness is like way all over the place. But where they are is where their consciousness is. So there's no way to know what like those words unless you are the Buddha. It's like the best you could do is just show them the things based on where your consciousness is and what you're picking up, and then ta-da. Like just something. Another funny example is when I was talking with those ladies. Somebody else kind of joined the chat just for a bit, and she found out I don't have a credit card or cell phone and things like that, and she was like, "You should get a credit card." And then I didn't say anything, but the other lady knows that I didn't and has talked to me a few times, so she started like explaining why I don't have a credit card for me in like her own terms. And it was like not what I would have said, but and then the lady who asked like you or said you should get a credit card and stuff is like, you can take it in one end of uh I'm there's obviously I've probably heard hundreds of people say that I should get a credit card. It's not like I'm gonna change my mind based on what one person says. But when then she's like, you should speak up, and like instead of her explaining it for you. But then I was just laughing to myself on how my curiosity about what how that person would answer her in my place completely outweighed any interest in me explaining myself and I don't have one. Like I was just so interested in why this other what this other person would think and what they would like how they explained it and all this stuff. And like that was interesting. Me explaining why I don't and all this other stuff wouldn't be interesting. And this person's state of being of like you should get one of these. Like they are where they are. I'm just watching a monkey hammer a nail really, and then seeing this other person like they're just a slightly more dexterous orangutan, and that's just like explaining these ins and outs, and like people can do what they want and there are other ways of doing things. You don't really need a credit card, or like that's he's somehow living without one, like it might be okay or whatever. And I'm just like, no, I'm an orangutan of my own, like observing other monkeys do things and being like, like we're all just observing each other and like doing different things and responding. We all have completely different interests. So like I didn't mention it, but my consciousness was where I was the interest in how another person would explain to another person what another person is thinking. Like I thought that was fascinating. And like they have that's not at all what either of their minds were focused on. But that just shows like three people interacting and we're all in completely different wavelengths. uh,
Yeah, everyone's got their own world.